This is our past, gentlemen. This is where we have been. This is how we got here. This is who we are today.
You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, one half a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us.
It's not about that scoreboard out there. It's not about winning. It's about you and your relationship to yourself and your family and your friends.
They're strong, fast, and undefeated. So far. But I want you to remember where God has brought us. I want you to remember how hard you've worked. We weren't supposed to have a winning season, but we do. We weren't supposed to advance through the playoffs, but we did. We're not supposed to be here, but we are. So if there's anything in you that says this is a losing effort, throw it out. Because as I stand here, I believe that as long as we honor God, nothing is impossible.
Welcome, friends, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Diggin, Deeper into the NFL. I'm your host, Brian Parsons, and today's show, we go digging deeper into the NFL for Week 14. Week 14 kicked off Thursday, December 4th, 2025, with the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Ford Field in Detroit to take on the Lions. While both teams were fighting for critical wins, the stakes were higher for Dallas, whose playoff hopes are hanging by a thread. Detroit, meanwhile, has been finding consistency at home and looked to capitalize on the Cowboys' recent struggles. From the opening kickoff, it was clear that Dallas needed a near-perfect performance to stay in contention, while the Lions aimed to assert control early and protect their own postseason positioning. Time of possession was relatively close, but Dallas held a slim advantage. 31 minutes and 23 seconds of possession for the Cowboys versus 28 minutes and 37 seconds for Detroit. Still, possession alone didn't win the game. In terms of plays run, Dallas executed 76 plays compared to 57 plays for Detroit. Yet the Lions got far more out of each snap, including a dominant performance from their running back Jahmyr Gibbs, who scored 3 touchdowns and helped power Detroit's offense when it mattered. While Dallas quarterback Dak Prescott threw for 376 yards and a touchdown, 2 critical interceptions, along with missed red zone chances and costly turnovers, stalled several drives. Jared Goff delivered exactly the kind of steady, efficient performance Detroit needed, completing 25 of 34 passes for 309 yards and a touchdown without committing a turnover. His command of the offense helped the Lions maximize their opportunities, even while running just 57 plays to Dallas's 76. Detroit finished with 408 total yards, slightly behind the Cowboys, 417. But Goff's timely throws and mistake-free play ensured the Lions stayed in control whenever momentum wavered. Detroit's 44-30 victory over Dallas on Thursday night didn't just shake up the Week 14 scoreboard, it dramatically altered the playoff landscape for both teams. Entering the game, the Lions carried only about a 30 to 35% chance of reaching the postseason, but the win pushed their probability to roughly 45%, giving them renewed life in a crowded NFC race. For the Cowboys, however, the loss was devastating. Their playoff odds, which were already slipping, plunged to around 9 to 10%. Leaving Dallas in a position where even winning out may not be enough without significant help from other NFC contenders. In a game both teams desperately needed, Detroit emerged strengthened, while Dallas saw its postseason path narrow to the thinnest of margins. The Tennessee Titans traveled to Cleveland to take on a Browns team that has been struggling much like the two-tone blue, and while both franchises are in disarray, the Browns entered with a better win-loss record. In a tense back-and-forth contest played in cold December conditions, the Tennessee Titans edged the Cleveland Browns 31-29, snapping a long skid while holding off a ferocious Cleveland comeback. Tennessee controlled the tempo early, leaning on a strong ground attack that repeatedly gashed the Browns' front seven. The Titans built a multi-score lead thanks to a pair of explosive runs and a crisp passing game that converted key third downs. Cleveland, however, dominated total yardage and moved the ball almost at will in the second half, piling up long drives and controlling possession. A late touchdown pulled the Browns with under 5 minutes remaining, but failed two-point attempts and a fruitless final possession doomed the comeback. Tennessee finished with roughly 31 minutes of possession and used a balanced offensive attack to close out the win despite being outgained by over 100 yards. The pivotal moment came on a third-quarter interception by the Titans defense, flipping field position and setting up the score that provided the deciding margin. Although the weather was cold and the conditions were not friendly, both teams were able to rack up a significant amount of yardage. The Titans compiled 378 total yards, and the Browns amassed 497. Tennessee relied heavily on its ground game, finishing with 184 rushing yards, powered primarily by Tony Pollard's 161-yard, two-touchdown performance. Cam Ward was far more modest, totaling 117 passing yards. But that production proved efficient enough to complement the dominant run game. The rookie was not asked to carry the load, but he delivered exactly what the Titans needed to secure the win. His touchdown pass to Alec Iomanor on the opening drive set the tone, and that opening possession may have been the cleanest offensive series the Titans have executed all season. The Cleveland Browns, meanwhile, leaned almost entirely on the arm of rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders, finishing with 364 passing yards and 3 touchdown throws. He also added another touchdown on the ground with his legs. However, Cleveland's rushing offense never found traction, managing only 61 yards on the ground the entire game. The stark contrast, Tennessee's run-heavy approach versus Cleveland's pass-centric production, defined the game's flow and helped the Titans control tempo despite being outgained overall in total yardage. On paper, the game appears to be an entertaining slugfest. 2 rookie quarterbacks, a high-scoring affair, and a combined 875 total yards, but that's only on paper. The real question is whether the actual result of the contest proved anything beyond the fact that 2 mediocre teams squared off. Did the numbers Sanders put up mean he's a star quarterback in the making? Or was it simply a product of facing another team near the bottom of the league? The same question applies to Ward. These young quarterbacks need time to grow, and games like this are valuable for their development, but it is far too early to make definitive judgments about either player. Those who attempt to do so are either chasing a quick headline, pumping out YouTube clickbait, or trying to stir up a hot take, something all too common among modern sports personalities. It's understandable, given that hot takes are how many make their money, but that doesn't make the analysis right, nor is it responsible. The Seattle Seahawks traveled to Atlanta on Sunday and left no doubt about their NFC credentials, defeating the Falcons 37-9 in a game that started close but became a blowout after halftime. The first half was tight, with both teams trading field goals and keeping the score tied at 6-6. But Seattle's second-half surge turned the contest decisively in their favor. The turning point came on the opening kickoff of the third quarter, when Rashid Shaheed returned it 100 yards for a touchdown, igniting the Seahawks' momentum and visibly deflating the Falcons. From there, Seattle's defense dominated, forcing multiple turnovers including interceptions by Devin Witherspoon and Nick Emenwuri, along with a fumble recovery, repeatedly flipping field position, and setting up scoring drives. Quarterback Sam Darnold, who had been quiet in the first half, came alive in the second, throwing 3 touchdown passes, 2 to Jackson Smith-Njigba and 1 to Cooper Kupp, and mixing in key scrambles to keep Atlanta's defense off balance. Seattle finished with 389 total yards compared to Atlanta's 268. Controlling the game through time of possession and momentum after halftime. The Falcons managed just 3 field goals and were unable to score a touchdown, highlighting Seattle's defensive dominance and opportunistic approach. For Atlanta, now 4 wins and 9 losses, the result emphasized season-long issues, poor special teams execution, defensive lapses, and an offense that failed to capitalize even in the early competitive stages. Conversely, the Seahawks improved to 10 wins and 3 losses, reinforcing their status as one of the NFC's top playoff contenders and demonstrating their depth, adaptability, and ability to turn a close first half into a decisive blowout. Ultimately, while the game started competitively, Seattle's second-half explosion showed how quickly momentum and execution, aided by a few big plays, can turn a tight matchup into a commanding win. Seattle finished with 389 total yards, 229 passing, and 160 rushing, while Atlanta managed just 268 yards, including 198 through the air and 70 on the ground. Time of possession favored the Seahawks heavily at 35 minutes and 42 seconds to 24 minutes and 18 seconds, allowing them to control the pace and keep Atlanta's offense off the field during the decisive second-half surge. Cousins completed 15 of 30 passes for 162 yards, but threw 2 interceptions. The Seahawks totaled 365 yards, including a combination of 236 passing yards and 129 rushing yards, reflecting a balanced offensive approach that allowed them to dominate the second half, whereas the Falcons managed 274 total yards with 154 passing yards and 120 yards on the ground. The Falcons have endured more than a disappointing season, struggling to find consistency on offense and defense, with missed opportunities compounding a tough year. By contrast, the Seahawks, even when starting slow, can soar like their mascots, quickly finding rhythm under the leadership of their star quarterback and a dominant receiving corps. In Week 14, this dynamic was on full display. After a close first half, Seattle erupted in the second, mixing efficient passing, timely scrambles, and explosive plays to pull away from Atlanta. Their ability to flip momentum, capitalize on turnovers, and maintain control of the clock highlighted why they remain one of the NFC's most dangerous teams when firing on all cylinders. In a pivotal AFC South matchup, the Jacksonville Jaguars hosted the Indianapolis Colts, a team that had been one of the first half's biggest surprises of the season. However, the second half of the year has not been kind to the young Colts, and on Sunday, the Jaguars made that evident. Jacksonville dominated Indianapolis 36-19 at Everbank Stadium, turning what could have been a closely contested division clash into a decisive statement victory and seizing sole possession of first place in the AFC South. The loss for the Colts goes far beyond another mark on the record. Indianapolis not only fell behind early and struggled to recover, but they also lost starting quarterback Daniel Jones to a torn Achilles in the second quarter, a devastating injury that likely ends his season. The sudden change forced backup Riley Leonard into the lineup, but he struggled to generate consistent offense, finishing with just 145 passing yards and 1 interception, while the Colts' rushing attack remained largely contained. Jacksonville capitalized on the disruption, turning turnovers and big plays into points, and cementing a decisive 36-19 victory. From the opening possession, Jacksonville set the tone. Running back Travis Etienne Jr. plunged in for a 3-yard touchdown run on just their second drive, and another Etienne burst. This time a 28-yard run pushed the lead further before the first quarter ended. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence played with composure, finishing 17 of 30 for 244 yards and 2 touchdown passes, without throwing an interception. The Jaguars' offense stayed balanced and aggressive, despite rainy, December-like conditions. Etienne rushed 20 times for 74 yards and 2 scores, giving Jacksonville steady ground production. Wide receivers scattered the ball around, and 3 of Lawrence's completions went for at least 30 yards, helping stretch the Colts' defense and keep momentum on Jacksonville's side. Defensively, the Jaguars forced 3 turnovers, converting 2 into first-half touchdowns and shutting down the Colts' running game. Even with the Colts' feature-back Jonathan Taylor totaling 74 rushing yards on 21 carries, Jacksonville's run defense remained stout under pressure. The Colts never recovered. By halftime, Jacksonville led 28-10, and though the Colts attempted a comeback with field goals and a late touchdown, the deficit was too large. The Jaguars' balanced attack, opportunistic defense, and ability to capitalize on turnovers turned the game into a rout after a shaky start in damp weather. Daniel Jones, who had been playing at a high level early in the season and even earned the nickname Indiana Jones for his daring plays, now leaves the Colts in a perilous position. With second-string quarterback Anthony Richardson already on injured reserve, the team is effectively down to Riley Leonard as their starter, unless management decides to sign a quarterback from outside the roster. Leonard, thrust into a difficult situation against a strong Jaguars defense, struggled to keep drives alive, highlighting just how vulnerable the Colts' offense has become in the wake of Jones' season-ending Achilles injury. Just a few weeks ago, this matchup was anticipated as a battle for the top spot in the AFC South, with both teams jockeying for position. But by the end of Sunday's contest, it became clear that the teams are now heading in opposite directions. What once promised to be a tight division showdown instead turned into a statement game, solidifying Jacksonville's dominance and leaving Indianapolis with significant questions about how to move forward. The Minnesota Vikings hosted the Washington Commanders on a cold December day in Minneapolis, though the contest was played comfortably inside the dome. In the offseason, many circled this game as a matchup to watch. The Vikings were coming off a 14-win campaign last season, and the Commanders had reached the NFC Championship game. Yet, as fate would have it, both teams entered Week 14 having struggled mightily, disappointing expectations. The Commanders have battled injuries, most notably to starting quarterback Jaden Daniels, and while Marcus Mariota has filled in respectably, Inconsistency has plagued the team throughout the season. Meanwhile, Vikings quarterback J. McCarthy, a first-round pick from a few seasons ago, is effectively experiencing his rookie year after missing his true rookie season due to injury, and even this season he has missed additional games. Headlines around this matchup were abundant, but mostly for the wrong reasons. McCarthy's season has drawn more scrutiny and questions than accolades, a common story for young quarterbacks, and it is far too soon to make any definitive judgments about his future performance. This was a dominant performance by Minnesota, there's no denying this, but it's hard to say this was a statement game for Minnesota. The Vikings shut out the Washington Commanders 31-0, delivering a thorough beatdown that exposed how far close the two franchises are at this moment. From the opening drive, Minnesota set the tone. Quarterback J.J. McCarthy, returning from injury, orchestrated a clean and efficient game, completing 16 of 23 passes for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns, while adding 19 rushing yards to keep the Commanders off balance. Tight end Josh Oliver and wide receiver Jordan Addison each made key receptions that helped extend drives and convert scoring opportunities, while running back Jordan Mason capped a 19-play, 98-yard drive with a rushing touchdown, demonstrating the Vikings' ability to mix run and pass effectively. Josh Oliver caught 2 touchdown passes, and T.J. Hawkinson caught another for 3 total tosses. On the other side, Washington struggled mightily to generate offense. Turnovers and sacks piled up, highlighted by interceptions from Andrew Van Ginkel and Harrison Smith, and a forced fumble recovered by Javon Hargrave. Both Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota threw picks, and neither could spark any sustained drives. And the Commanders managed only 206 total yards compared to Minnesota's 313. Time of possession heavily favored the Vikings, 35 minutes to 25, allowing them to control tempo and dictate the pace throughout. Again, while the 31-0 shutout is dominant, it's difficult to call this a true statement game for Minnesota, given the health and inconsistency concerns surrounding both squads. Both franchises still have many questions to answer in the offseason, from quarterback durability to overall roster depth, and their talent alone will not overcome the injuries and rough edges that have plagued their campaigns. For now, the Vikings walk away with a convincing win and a chance to regroup, while the Commanders face a long road to recover momentum and stabilize a team beset by injuries and uneven performance. The Cincinnati Bengals, led by a returning Joe Burrow, traveled to Orchard Park, New York, to take on the Buffalo Bills. On a snow-dusted afternoon at Highmark Stadium, the Buffalo Bills rallied from a double-digit fourth-quarter deficit to beat the Cincinnati Bengals 39-34 in one of Week 14's wildest finishes. This may have been a candidate for Game of the Year, no joke. From the opening whistle, the Bengals looked like they might run away with it. Under clear intention to lean on their aerial attack, Cincinnati quarterback Joe Burrow carved up the Bills' secondary with precision. Burrow finished with 284 passing yards and 4 touchdowns on 25 of 36 passing, showing sharp rhythm and timing all game long. Wideout T. Higgins had a big day, hauling in 92 yards and 2 of those scores, including a highlight 25-yard one-handed grab. Cincinnati's offense looked dialed. By the end of the first half, they led comfortably and seemed to have just enough to keep Buffalo at bay. The Bengals' ground game was modest, 62 rushing yards on 19 attempts, but it didn't matter much when Burrow's arm was working. But the Bills refused to fold. Behind Josh Allen, who combined passing precision with playmaking on the ground, Buffalo slowly chipped away at the lead. Allen completed 22 of 28 passes for 251 yards and 3 passing touchdowns, and added a 40-yard rushing TD when the pressure was highest. The defining sequence came in the fourth quarter. First, cornerback Christian Benford intercepted a Burrow pass and returned it 63 yards for a pick-six, giving Buffalo its first lead at 32-28. On the very next Bengals drive, Buffalo's defense struck again when edge rusher A.J. Epinesa scooped up a tipped pass, a turnover that set up Allen's go-ahead touchdown pass to Jackson Hawes. When was the last time Burrow was intercepted on 2 consecutive pass attempts? Good question. The last time Joe Burrow was intercepted on 2 consecutive pass attempts was on September 19, 2021, in a game versus Chicago Bears. On that day, he threw 3 straight interceptions on 3 consecutive passes. That run included 2 straight picks on back-to-back throws. This game, and the interceptions, ended Burrow's then NFL best streak of 200 passes without an interception. The quarterback matchup lived up to its hype. Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen. In a snowy Buffalo afternoon, Burrow completed 25 of 36 passes for 284 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, but also threw 2 interceptions, both coming in the fourth quarter and proving fatal. For most of the game, he looked sharp. Early on, Cincinnati converted a staggering 9 of 11 third down attempts, and Burrow was instrumental on drives that kept the Bengals ahead deep into the fourth. His first half performance, 13 of 18 for 130 yards, reflecting composure and efficiency before the game slipped away. But the late game unraveled. On back-to-back snaps, the Bills' defense struck. A deep interception returned for a touchdown by cornerback Christian Benford, and then another tipped pass picked off by defensive end A.J. Epinesa, swinging momentum and the lead to Buffalo. Allen finished the game 22 of 28 passing for 251 yards with 3 passing touchdowns, and added a 40-yard rushing touchdown, a huge play that helped ignite the comeback. On the game-winning drive late in the fourth quarter, Allen converted a 3rd and 15 with a scramble that picked up 17 yards. A clutch, under-pressure play that let Buffalo run out the clock and seal the win. His dual-threat performance, effective passing under pressure, and dangerous running ability underscored why he is often considered among the league's elite QBs. This performance by both quarterbacks should not come as a surprise. Burrow still has elite passing skills. His 284 yards and 4 touchdowns show why the Bengals' offense remains dangerous. When clean, when rhythms are established, and when third downs convert. That said, his 2 late turnovers, under pressure and in cold snow, highlight a vulnerability. When the stakes are highest, mistakes are costly. Snow or not, the combination of tipped passes, aggressive throws, and perhaps fatigue under duress proved decisive. Allen's dual-threat ability and clutch composure win big games. In a game where confidence, tempo, and momentum often shift late, Allen's ability to pass accurately, scramble when needed, and deliver under pressure gave Buffalo a decisive edge. The fact that one of his rushing touchdowns was a 40-yard sprint, his longest ever, shows that his physical tools remain an equalizer, even in bad weather. Both excel in different ways. But resilience matters. Burrow's precision and timing make him a premier pocket passer. Allen adds layers: mobility, improvisation, and resilience under pressure. If you need a standard bearer for a balanced offense under clean conditions, Burrow provides that. If you want a quarterback who can shift the floor with his legs or respond when things go sideways, especially in tough environments, Allen may offer more versatility. Absolutely, that's an important nuance. While Josh Allen is often highlighted for his dual-threat style, Joe Burrow is not immobile by any means. He may not rack up 70-plus rushing yards per game like Allen at his peak, but Burrow can scramble effectively when the pocket collapses, pick up crucial yards on third down, and extend drives that would otherwise stall. For Buffalo, the win reinforced their status as a dangerous, never-say-die playoff threat. Despite mistakes, including red zone fumbles early, and trailing for large stretches, the Bills showed resilience under pressure. Josh Allen's dual-threat ability, paired with opportunistic defense, delivered when it counted most. The victory improves Buffalo's record to 9 wins and 4 defeats and keeps their playoff hopes strong. For Cincinnati, it's a heartbreaking defeat. Even with a strong offensive performance, 4 touchdown passes from Burrow, 92 yards and 2 TDs from Higgins, the Bengals couldn't close out the win. 2 late interceptions and a defense unable to make fourth down stands in crunch time turned what looked like a win into a gutting loss. At 4 wins and 9 defeats, their playoff window narrows significantly. Let's just be honest, it has shut on the Bengals' cats. The snow, the shifting momentum, and the high stakes made this one of Week 14's most dramatic games. A reminder that in the NFL, execution under pressure and taking advantage of mistakes often matters more than raw yardage or flashy numbers. Buffalo finished with 416 total yards, 183 rushing yards, and 233 passing yards. Time of possession tilted in their favor at 31 minutes and 48 seconds to Cincinnati's 28 minutes and 12 seconds. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and New Orleans Saints squared off at Raymond James Stadium in a battle between 2 NFC South rivals, and while the game had no implications for the Saints, the stakes were high for the Buccaneers, who are in a fight for the NFC South title with the Carolina Panthers. On this Sunday, in a humid, breezy, and rainy atmosphere with overcast skies, the New Orleans Saints upset the Buccaneers 24-20, riding gutsy rookie play by Tyler Shuck and opportunistic defense to snap Tampa Bay's recent winning streak. What began with sloppy conditions, missed tackles, and errant special teams coverage ended as a testament to clutch execution and late-game composure by New Orleans. From the opening possession, the weather played a part. Slick turf, rain, and shifting momentum led to mistakes. Tampa Bay's special teams breakdown was immediate. After a 54-yard return by the Saints, kick returner set up excellent field position. New Orleans struck first. On just their second drive, New Orleans rookie running back Devin McNeil punched in a 3-yard touchdown run to give the Saints an early 7-0 lead. Tampa answered quickly, though. On their next drive, quarterback Baker Mayfield hit running back Bucky Irving on a swing pass that broke open for a 24-yard score, evening the score at 7-7. Tampa Bay went into the half leading 10-7. But the game turned sharply after halftime. On Tampa's first possession of the second half, an interception of the Bucs' quarterback gave the Saints short field and renewed hope, which they turned into a 34-yard rushing touchdown by rookie quarterback Tyler Shuck. That run, coming on the first drive of the half and taking advantage of Tampa's faltering special teams and coverage unit, put New Orleans up 14-10. Tampa responded as running back Sean Tucker punched in a 1-yard rushing touchdown to retake a 17-14 lead later in the third quarter. But the Saints weren't done. A sustained 53-yard drive late in the third resulted in a field goal to tie it at 17-17, setting up a pivotal fourth-quarter battle. With under 9 minutes remaining, Shuck marshaled a gutsy game-winning drive. Mixing short passes and timely scrambles, he capped it with a 13-yard touchdown run that put New Orleans up 24-17. That run was part sheer grit, escaping pressure from Tampa defenders, and part athleticism, highlighting why the rookie has emerged as a spark for the Saints. Tampa had one last chance. They advanced to the red zone, but a dropped sideline pass in the end zone sealed the defeat. A 37-yard field goal cut it to 24-20, but New Orleans' defense forced a final stop, preventing any miracle finish. The Saints leaned on their young ground attack. Tyler Shuck rushed for 55-plus yards and 2 touchdowns, marking one of the rare recent games where a Saints QB's legs decided the outcome. New Orleans' rookie running back Devin McNeil added 70 rushing yards and a touchdown, giving the Saints strong two-back production. The game will be remembered for Tampa's failings. The Buccaneers converted just 3 of 13 third-down attempts, sputtering when it mattered most. Their defense also struggled, giving up big chunks of yardage over the middle and failing repeatedly in short yardage situations. This was further illustrated through turnovers and field position. A costly interception and poor special teams coverage swung momentum early. Combined with missed tackles and coverage breakdowns, Tampa was fighting uphill nearly from the start. For the Saints, this wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Behind a rookie QB and a youthful backfield, they showed guts, composure, and the ability to make big plays in bad weather and under pressure. Their running game and opportunistic defense turned what many expected to be a sloppy loss into a morale-boosting upset. For the Buccaneers, it was the kind of game that exposes thin margins and faulty fundamentals. Missed third downs, breakdowns in coverage, and poor special teams execution combined to cost them the game. Even though they generated yardage and managed to score late, they lacked the discipline and poise needed in tight finishes. While the Saints are not yet back to the playoff-caliber teams of the Sean Payton era, this win could mark a turning point. The combination of youthful talent, rookie poise, and opportunistic play demonstrates that New Orleans has the building blocks for sustained success. If they can maintain composure in close games, improve consistency on offense, and tighten up special teams, the Big Easy may once again become a challenging destination for any opponent. Sunday's victory over Tampa Bay is a small but meaningful step in that direction. Proof that, even in soggy, unpredictable conditions, resilience and grit can still define a team's identity. The AFC North rivalry between the Ravens and Steelers, two teams desperately needing a win to keep their playoff contention alive, returned to Baltimore on Sunday, and the Steelers left M&T Bank Stadium with a gritty 27-22 win over the Ravens, a clutch triumph that flipped the AFC North standings and gave Pittsburgh sole possession of first place. From the opening kickoff, Pittsburgh set the tone. Veteran quarterback Aaron Rodgers, playing with a soft cast on his fractured wrist, looked far sharper than he had in recent weeks. He opened with a 52-yard strike to wide receiver DK Metcalf that immediately forced Baltimore onto its heels. On the first drive, Rodgers even ran one in himself, a 1-yard QB rush, putting Pittsburgh up 7-3. From there, the Steelers' balanced attack kept pressure on Baltimore's defense. They added a field goal and a Kenneth Gainwell rushing touchdown before halftime, carrying a 17-9 lead into the break. In the second half, Pittsburgh maintained control. Rodgers converted a third and long with another deep completion to Metcalf, setting up a Jaylen Warren 38-yard rushing touchdown, his first of the night, and a dagger to the Ravens' hopes. Baltimore attempted a comeback, but it unraveled in dramatic fashion. A would-be go-ahead touchdown pass to tight end Isaiah Likely in the fourth quarter was overturned on replay, costing the Ravens a lead. On the final drive, Pittsburgh's pass rush, led by Alex Highsmith, collapsed the pocket, sacked Baltimore quarterback Lamar Jackson on the last snap, and sealed the 27-22 win. Pittsburgh finished with 318 total net yards, despite being outgained overall. Baltimore registered 420 total yards, including a heavy dose of rushing yardage. Time of possession skewed in Baltimore's favor, roughly 33 minutes and 44 seconds to Pittsburgh's 26 minutes and 16 seconds. But turnovers and a couple of splash play drives proved decisive. Rodgers paced Pittsburgh's comeback, completing 23 of 34 passes for 284 yards, with a touchdown pass and a rushing score. Meanwhile, DK Metcalf torched the Ravens' secondary with a season-high 148 receiving yards, making him Rodgers' go-to weapon on big plays. On the Baltimore side, running back Derrick Henry churned out 94 yards on 25 carries, and Jackson tried to rally his team, including a rushing touchdown. But inconsistencies and critical defensive breakdowns stalled what looked like a promising comeback. For Pittsburgh, this win is more than just 2 points. It's a statement. After a rough stretch and mounting criticism around head coach Mike Tomlin, the Steelers showed resilience, execution under pressure, and the ability to win tight games on the road. With a 7-6 record, they now control their destiny in the AFC North, at least for now. For Baltimore, the loss is harsh. They tallied more yards, controlled possession, and still came up short. Missed opportunities, a blown red zone call, and inability to close under pressure raise serious questions about execution, discipline, and playoff viability. At 6-7, this Ravens squad, once eyed as serious contenders, now faces a critical second half of the season if they hope to climb back into contention. In the rivalry that often hinges on inches, the Steelers versus Ravens, this week's game showed exactly why. Big plays, turnovers, and situational execution mattered more than raw yardage or time of possession. Pittsburgh came in, took what they needed, and walked out with division control. Baltimore, for now, is left to stare at missed chances and a quickly closing window. The Dolphins played the Jets in East Rutherford and turned what many expected to be a competitive AFC East outing into a blowout, powering to a dominant 34-10 victory that left little doubt about which team showed up ready to win. From the opening drive, Miami imposed its will. A quick strike, including a 39-yard run by Devon Achane, set up a 3-yard touchdown pass from Tua Tagovailoa to Jalen Waddle. Within minutes, the Dolphins had established a 7-0 lead, and the Jets looked shell-shocked. The Miami ground game, one of the best in the league this season, added a rushing TD on the next drive, and another short yardage rushing score pushed the lead to 21-0 within the first quarter. From there, the Dolphins didn't let up. Even after Achane exited in the second quarter with a rib injury, Miami's backfield depth carried the load. Jalen Wright stepped in and delivered a career-best performance with 107 yards on 24 carries and a touchdown, while rookie Ollie Gordon II later added another rushing touchdown to seal the rout. Meanwhile, Miami's defense, which begun trending upward lately, absolutely dominated. The unit registered 6 sacks and 3 interceptions, repeatedly disrupting Jets' drives and forcing turnovers that turned into points. New York's offense, already plagued by injuries, sputtered further when starter Tyrod Taylor exited with a groin injury early. Rookie Brady Cook was thrown into the fire and finished 14 of 30 for 163 yards with 2 interceptions. The Jets' offense never gained momentum. They managed just 207 total yards, converted only 1 third down all game, and their only score came via a 78-yard punt return. The final numbers underline Miami's dominance: 358 total net yards versus 207, and a time of possession edge of 36 minutes and 7 seconds to 23 minutes and 53 seconds. The Dolphins piled up 239 rushing yards on 41 carries, a bruising, controlling rushing attack that set the tempo and kept the Jets on their heels. For the Jets, the loss was more than another blowout. It officially ended their playoff hopes, which were over weeks prior. But now, mathematically, the season has come to an end, extending their postseason drought to 15 years, the longest active streak in North American sports. For Miami, this win, their 4th straight, is a statement. They showed balance, physicality, and discipline across all 3 phases: offense, defense, and special teams. Their ground game, depth at running back, and defensive pass rush make them a dangerous late-season team when healthy and focused. The Jets, meanwhile, enter a dark winter. Between injuries, lack of offensive cohesion, and defensive breakdowns, their season appears to be slipping away. With a rookie under center and confidence shaken, the rest of the year may be about damage control, evaluations, and, possibly, a long off-season of retooling. While the Dolphins have had a roller coaster season, recent weeks have shown signs of life, particularly as the AFC has struggled for consistency this year. With a strong finish over the last month, Miami has effectively put the fish back into the water regarding a potential playoff spot. Their combination of a dominant rushing attack, opportunistic defense, and improving depth gives them a chance to capitalize on the shifting strength of the AFC, where no team has clearly separated itself. If the Dolphins can maintain focus and health through the final stretch, they could ride this late-season momentum into the postseason, a stark turnaround from earlier in the year when questions about consistency and execution seemed to define the team. On Sunday, the Denver Broncos traveled to Las Vegas and rolled the dice in a showdown with the Raiders. In Sin City, the Broncos were favorites to win, and the Broncos did not disappoint. In this contest, they came through as a sure thing as they continued their dominant run by defeating the Raiders 24-17, extending their win streak to 10 games and reinforcing their grip on the AFC West. Denver controlled almost every facet of the game, from time of possession to field position. Quarterback Bo Nix orchestrated a steady attack, completing 31 of 38 passes for 212 yards and adding a rushing touchdown that set the tone early. The Broncos' opening drive was a masterclass in methodical football. A 14-play, 81-yard march capped by Nix's scramble, immediately signaling that Denver meant business. Special teams delivered a pivotal highlight when wide receiver Marvin Mims Jr. returned a punt 48 yards for a touchdown, extending Denver's lead and shifting momentum firmly in their favor. The running game, powered by R.J. Harvey, also played its part, with a 3-yard goal line plunge in the third quarter that effectively put the game out of reach for the Raiders. The Raiders fought valiantly, with quarterback Geno Smith finding tight end Brock Bowers on a 15-yard touchdown pass to open scoring. Late in the fourth, backup Kenny Pickett engineered a drive, ending in a touchdown to Shedrick Jackson, narrowing the gap. But Denver's control of the clock and a final defensive stand preserved the win. Time of possession favored Denver heavily at 39 minutes and 3 seconds to 20 minutes and 57 seconds, and they outgained Las Vegas 356 yards to 229, showcasing a balance of efficient passing, opportunistic rushing, and special teams scoring. The Broncos' methodical, mistake-free approach, punctuated by key splash plays, highlighted why they are now 11-2 on the season and firmly in control of the AFC West. Meanwhile, the Raiders' inconsistencies and late-game heroics weren't enough to overcome the Broncos' comprehensive performance. While the Raiders did make the game competitive, at least on paper, the question is, was the comeback more due to Denver letting up a bit due to the game being well in hand? Was the yardage and points scored more chunk yards and points that didn't really mean anything in the bigger picture, more for scoreboard dressing? Or were they legitimate in a hard-fought comeback that fell short? On that, we will let you be the judge. It is true the Raiders did manage to close the gap late in the fourth quarter. A closer look at the context suggests this was more a combination of Denver easing off slightly and garbage time yardage rather than a full-fledged, sustained comeback. The Broncos had built a comfortable lead early, thanks to that opening 14-play, 81-yard drive, the punt return touchdown by Marvin Mims Jr., and R.J. Harvey's short yardage score. By the fourth quarter, Denver had already burned much of the clock, controlled possession for nearly 40 minutes, and forced Las Vegas into a situation where they had to take risks. That naturally leads to bigger passing attempts, chunk plays, and higher yardage totals that inflate stats but don't necessarily reflect true momentum swings. So yes, on paper, it looks like a competitive comeback. But in the bigger picture, Denver was always in control. The Raiders' late yardage and points were impressive, but largely for scoreboard dressing rather than reflecting a game-changing push. But again, we will let you be the judge of this one. The Los Angeles Rams marched into Glendale for a Week 14 divisional showdown and overwhelmed the Arizona Cardinals 45-17, delivering one of their most complete performances of the season. From the outset, the Rams dictated the pace, blending explosive plays with methodical drives that kept Arizona's defense scrambling. Matthew Stafford, looking as sharp as he has all year, threw for 281 yards and 3 touchdowns, spreading the ball efficiently to a receiving core headlined by Puka Nacua, who hauled in 7 passes for 167 yards and a score. What set the tone, however, was the Rams' punishing ground attack. Rookie running back Blake Corum gashed the Cardinals for 128 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, consistently extending drives and helping Los Angeles dominate the trenches. Kyren Williams added an additional 84 yards on 13 carries. Arizona struggled to keep up despite occasional flashes from Jacoby Brissett, who threw for 271 yards, 2 touchdowns and 22 yards on the ground. The Cardinals posted 314 total yards, but much of their production came in catch-up mode after falling behind early. Their run game never found stability, managing just 51 rushing yards, and frequent early down stalls forced Murray into obvious passing situations that allowed the Rams' front seven to attack aggressively. Los Angeles, in contrast, piled up 530 total yards, including 249 on the ground, and controlled the ball for 35 minutes and 4 seconds, wearing out an already thin Arizona defense. For Arizona, the loss underscored a season defined by inconsistency, injuries, and an inability to finish drives. Brissett connected with young receiver Michael Wilson 11 times for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns, and connected with star receiver Trey McBride 5 times for 58 yards. The Rams, meanwhile, look rejuvenated from a loss the previous week against Carolina. Their combination of veteran quarterback play, a rising young backfield, and a defense tightening at the right time has positioned them firmly in the playoff conversation. If Los Angeles continues to play with this level of balance and physicality, their late-season push could make them one of the NFC's most dangerous threats, whether it's as the NFC West divisional winner or a wildcard berth. This game was much more than just another date on the schedule. It was a divisional showdown, and anytime two NFC West rivals collide, the intensity rises regardless of record, momentum, or roster talent. Divisional games carry a different weight, built on familiarity, lingering grudges, and years of physical, emotional battles. Upsets have defined this rivalry before, and plenty of teams have learned the hard way that records mean little when the stakes involve bragging rights and playoff positioning. That reality made the Rams' dominant 45-17 victory even more significant. In a matchup where emotion can level the playing field, Los Angeles not only weathered the heightened energy, but controlled it, staying composed, efficient, and aggressive, while Arizona struggled to match their pace. The Rams didn't just win a divisional game. They imposed their identity in one, a sign of a team trending upward at the most important point of the season. The storied rivalry between Chicago and Green Bay renewed itself Sunday at Lambeau Field, a matchup of NFC North contenders that earned national attention. The Packers edged the Bears 28-21 in a tightly contested game that featured swings of momentum, late dramatics, and a bitter end for the visitors from Chicago. Green Bay built a 14-3 halftime lead behind 2 early touchdowns, but the Bears fought back in the second half. Chicago's offense came alive. Quarterback Caleb Williams connected on 2 rushing and passing TD drives, one to receiver Olamide Zaccheaus, and one to tight end Colston Loveland, before a late 41-yard field goal by Cairo Santos tied the game 21-21. Green Bay, however, answered with a 65-yard drive, capped by a short touchdown run from Josh Jacobs with 3 minutes and 32 seconds remaining. On Chicago's final drive, Williams rolled left and lofted a pass toward the end zone on 4th and -1. But Packers cornerback Kaizen Nixon leapt ahead to intercept the throw, with 22 seconds remaining, sealing the win for Green Bay. Packers quarterback Jordan Love delivered a composed performance, completing 17 of 25 passes for 234 yards and 3 touchdowns, with 1 interception, while receivers Christian Watson and Bo Melton made big plays. Watson hauling in 2 touchdowns and Melton burning the Bears deep for a 45-yard score. Running back Josh Jacobs added 86 yards in the game-winning run, balancing the Packers' attack. On the Bears' side, Williams showed poise and playmaking ability on multiple comeback drives, and the defense, leading the league in takeaways this season, added an interception by C.J. Gardner-Johnson. But in the end, Chicago came up 1 play short. With the win, Green Bay improves to 9 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie, and takes sole possession of first place in the NFC North, while the Bears drop to 9 wins and 4 losses, a half game back. The NFC North race is far from decided, especially with a rematch coming in just 2 weeks at Soldier Field. This wasn't just another regular season game. It was a traditional rivalry, filled with history, stakes, and emotion. For Green Bay, The result reinforces their home field dominance and ability to win close games under pressure. For Chicago, the game was a gritty fight that showed promise, but ultimately highlighted where this team still needs to grow. Closing games, protecting the ball, and finishing drives when it counts. The game began with Jordan Love leading an efficient opening drive capped by a touchdown pass to Christian Watson, immediately putting Chicago on its heels. The Bears responded only with a field goal on their first meaningful possession, and Green Bay extended its lead to 14-3 by halftime after another Love to Watson score. The game gradually tightened in the second half as Caleb Williams began to settle in, engineering 2 touchdown drives, one through the air to Olamide Zaccheaus and another built on his legs and short passing, pulling the Bears even at 21-21 following a late Cairo Santos field goal. But in crunch time, the Packers regained control, marching 65 yards on a balanced, clock-chewing possession that ended with a short Josh Jacobs touchdown run to reclaim the lead. Statistically, the game reflected how evenly matched these NFC North rivals were, even if Green Bay dictated the key moments. The Packers finished with 351 total yards, while the Bears posted 326, keeping the margin razor-thin. Time of possession also leaned slightly toward Chicago, 33 minutes and 29 seconds, to Green Bay's 26 minutes and 31 seconds. Love's efficiency, 234 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Jacobs, 86 rushing yards provided Green Bay with the balance needed to fend off Chicago's second-half surge. Williams, meanwhile, demonstrated poise and playmaking ability in a hostile environment. But the Bears' late push ultimately fell short. What began as a controlled, early lead game for the Packers ended as a tense, dramatic rivalry finish, with Green Bay surviving a furious Chicago rally to secure a 28-21 win and take first place in the NFC North. This type of balance, efficient and effective passing, and a strong ground-and-pound game is what wins football games in December and throughout the postseason. As already mentioned, Chicago's final drive ended in heartbreak, as on 4th and 1 just outside the red zone, Caleb Williams rolled left and tried to squeeze a throw into a tight window, only for cornerback Kyzon Nixon to jump the route and secure a game-sealing interception with 22 seconds remaining. Even so, the game never felt out of reach for Chicago. Even when the score tilted in Green Bay's favor, the Bears remained within striking distance, continuing the season-long trend of rallying from behind and refusing to fold. It's fair to wonder how different the outcome might have looked had Rome Odunze, Williams' most trusted target, been healthy and available, especially in a game decided by one final throw. But while the Bears fell short on this cold Sunday night in Green Bay, the broader outlook for the franchise remains overwhelmingly positive. Chicago is beginning to resemble its old identity as the monsters of the Midway, pairing a revitalized, turnover-hungry defense with a franchise quarterback who has rapidly grown into form under rising head coach Ben Johnson. The loss stings, as it always does against the Packers, but it does little to dim the optimism building in Chicago. In a heavyweight showdown on Sunday Night Football, the Houston Texans traveled to Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Texans stunned the Chiefs and their home crowd at Arrowhead Stadium Sunday night, pulling off a gritty 20-10 upset that could well mark a turning point in both franchises' seasons. It was a bitterly cold night at Arrowhead Stadium, the kind of December freeze that hardens the field, stiffens the hands, and turns every yard into a fight. Both the Chiefs and the Texans struggled to move the ball early, with drives stalling, passes sailing just a bit off target, and receivers fighting the elements as much as the defenders across from them. The frigid air slowed Kansas City's usually explosive offense, while Houston leaned heavily on its defense to weather the early storm and keep the game under control. The cold didn't just shape the atmosphere, it shaped the entire opening act of the game, setting the stage for a defensive, grinded-out battle that neither side could comfortably dictate. From the opening whistle, Houston's defense set the tone, locking down the Chiefs' offense, disrupting rhythm, and forcing turnovers. Quarterback C.J. Stroud engineered enough of a balanced attack to keep drives alive, while defenders and linebackers delivered when it mattered most. Kansas City's night unraveled early. The Chiefs managed just 98 first-half yards, thanks in part to injuries on the offensive line and ferocious pressure from Houston's front. By halftime, the score stood at 10-0 in favor of the visitors, the Texans having converted a long pass to Nico Collins into a field goal, then capped a second drive with a 9-yard touchdown to running back Woody Marks. On the Chiefs' side, it was a quiet half for Patrick Mahomes, as his usual aerial command was stymied by persistent pressure and disjointed protection. Kansas City tried to rally in the third quarter. Mahomes led a drive that ended in a 2-yard touchdown run by Kareem Hunt, and a field goal later in the quarter pulled the Chiefs within 10-10, briefly restoring hope and momentum. But that momentum proved short-lived. Late in the fourth, the Chiefs elected to go for it on a risky 4th and 1 from deep in their own territory. Mahomes' pass fell incomplete, giving Houston great field position. Just a few plays later, Marks was in the end zone for a 5-yard touchdown run, and a subsequent field goal sealed the 20-10 final. 3 total interceptions of Mahomes, including one that effectively ended Kansas City's comeback, only underscored the night's one-sided undercurrent. For the Texans, Sunday night's win isn't just another notch in the win column, it's a statement. 5 straight victories now puts them deep in playoff contention, riding an elite defense and a renewed sense of belief as the AFC South race tightens. For the Chiefs, however, this loss cuts deep. Once viewed as perennial contenders, Kansas City now finds itself at 6 wins and 7 losses, fighting to stay alive as the postseason approaches. Injuries, questionable fourth-down decisions, and a pass protection breakdown make the coming weeks critical, not just for their playoff hopes, but for their identity. In Sunday night fashion, the Texans showed resolve, discipline, and a willingness to stay true to their identity when the lights were brightest. And the Chiefs, despite flashes of their usual firepower, came up short when it mattered most. Statistically, the game reflected how much the cold and defensive schemes dictated the pace. The Texans managed 268 total yards, with C.J. Stroud completing 15 of 31 passes for 203 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions, while also adding 5 rushing yards on 2 scrambles. The Chiefs, meanwhile, were held to 274 total yards, with Patrick Mahomes completing 14 of 33 passes for 160 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 costly interceptions. Houston controlled the clock just enough to keep Kansas City off balance, finishing with 31 and 58 seconds of time of possession, compared to 28 minutes and 2 seconds for the Chiefs. Despite relatively close yardage totals, the Texans' ability to convert key third downs, capitalize on turnovers, and sustain possession in crunch moments proved decisive in a game where big plays were at a premium. On Monday Night Football, the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, come into Inglewood, California, to play the Los Angeles Chargers at SoFi Stadium. Playing just 1 week after undergoing surgery on his fractured left hand, Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert fought through constant pressure all evening. Herbert completed only 12 of 26 passes for 139 yards and threw a touchdown and an interception, but his 66 rushing yards and late-game poise kept Los Angeles afloat as the offensive line continued to struggle. Philadelphia sacked him 7 times and forced hurried throws throughout the game, part of a season-long protection problem for the Chargers. Despite the hits, Herbert drove Los Angeles into field goal range in overtime, setting up Cameron Dicker's 54-yard game winner to push the Chargers to 9-4 and keep them squarely in the AFC playoff hunt. The Eagles, now 8-5, were undone by a 5-turnover performance from quarterback Jalen Hurts, who threw 4 interceptions and lost a fumble. His miscues overshadowed strong outings from running back Saquon Barkley, who rushed for 122 yards and a touchdown, and an Eagles defense that recorded 7 sacks. Philadelphia entered the night hoping to keep pace in the NFC race, but the turnover avalanche proved too much to overcome. Even so, the Eagles forced overtime after a late defensive stand and a steady final drive from Hurts. The win marks one of the Chargers' grittiest performances of the season, but raises continued concerns about Herbert's protection and long-term durability. With 2 starting tackles sidelined and pressure arriving on nearly half of Herbert's dropbacks, Los Angeles will face increasing scrutiny as it pushes toward January. For now, though, the Chargers will take the victory and the relief that comes with surviving one of the wildest Monday night finishes of the year. The game stayed tight throughout, but in overtime the Chargers prevailed, with Cameron Dicker hitting a 54-yard field goal to seal the win. For the Chargers, Justin Herbert played through a fractured hand and managed only 139 passing yards on 12 of 26 throws, but added 66 yards rushing for balance. On the Eagles side, Saquon Barkley ran for 122 yards and a touchdown, a strong ground performance despite the loss. The Eagles' defense had its moments, including 7 sacks, but turned the ball over too much. Quarterback Jalen Hurts threw 4 interceptions and lost a fumble. 2 of those turnovers even happened on the same play. A chaotic, rare sequence. Both teams entered Week 14 at 8-4, so this was a high-stakes matchup with playoff implications for both sides. The win gives the Chargers momentum as they chase a postseason berth, while the Eagles, last season's Super Bowl champs, now face added pressure to bounce back. The Eagles' turnover issues, especially Hurts, multiple interceptions, and the freak 2 turnover play highlight growing concerns over offensive consistency. The Chargers have major issues on offense too. They're struggling to protect Justin Herbert, who's been sacked repeatedly and is already playing through an injury. Their offensive line has been decimated by injuries. Both starting blockers, Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, are out, forcing backups and fringe line combinations to play. That instability has led to shocking pressure numbers. Through 2025, Herbert has reportedly been pressured 121 times, more than any other QB in the league, next highest at 95 pressures. Even this week, versus Philadelphia, Herbert played with a surgically repaired broken left hand, yet was sacked a career-high 7 times, pressured on over 50% of his dropbacks, and hit multiple other times. Herbert is a tough guy, no doubt, but playing through the pain, especially with the Chargers unable to protect, has serious consequences. For example, playing through a major injury, a broken hand, and still getting hammered by pass rushers, raises serious concerns about his long-term health and durability. Offensive production becomes fragile. When Herbert can't reliably stay upright or get clean pockets, even his skill doesn't fully translate into winning football, and this undermines confidence in the offensive line, and the lack of protection limits play-calling flexibility. Can't trust deep passes, can't hold the ball long, may need to commit extra blockers. The Eagles outgained the Chargers in total offense, finishing with 365 total yards to Los Angeles, 275, but Philadelphia couldn't turn that production into a win. Despite being held in check for much of the night, the Chargers controlled the flow of the game through a dominant 38 minutes and 5 time of possession, compared with the Eagles' 29 minutes and 26 seconds. Now, lopsided ball control advantage helped Los Angeles overcome its yardage deficit and ultimately secure the overtime victory. Although the score was tight and the game reached overtime, typically a recipe for high drama, this matchup didn't quite deliver in the traditional sense. It was entertaining, but largely for the wrong reasons. The Eagles are showing alarming signs of regression, echoing the collapse they suffered 2 seasons ago when an 10-1 start unraveled over the final 6 weeks, finishing 11-6, leaving them limping into the postseason with no momentum before a quick playoff exit. This year's team appears to be veering down a similar path. The Chargers, meanwhile, enter the Harbaugh era with heightened expectations and a franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert, but their own problems are hard to ignore. They still struggle to protect Herbert, who is playing through injury, and their defense has been depleted by injuries. So while the overtime win pushes Los Angeles to 9-4, it remains unclear how much this victory truly signifies beyond the record book. And on that note, friends, we'll call it a night. What a wild ride. Week 14 of the 2025 season turned out to be, from overtime thrillers to weather-soaked slugfests, from breakout rookies to battered contenders fighting to stay alive in the playoff race. Week 14 delivered everything that makes the NFL great. Huge hits, last-minute heroics, jaw-dropping catches, and gut-wrenching mistakes. The Bills' comeback win boosts their playoff hopes and reinvigorates what was beginning to look like another slump. Their resilience under fire, clutch throws, big hits, and seizing momentum can't be underestimated heading into the final stretch. For others, like the Bengals, this loss is ominous. Mistakes like back-to-back turnovers in crunch time highlight a fragile foundation. If they don't tighten up mentally and protect the ball, even talented rosters may fall short. Some teams soared, finding momentum just in time, while others spiraled, letting promising seasons slip away. As the playoffs loom, those swings between greatness and breakdown might be what define this 2025 campaign. From standout quarterback performances to clutch defensive stands and game-changing plays, we make it our mission here at Diggin' Deeper to capture every moment and bring it straight to you, the fans, so no defining snap goes unnoticed. Before we go, if you enjoyed this program, please like and share with others, and think about subscribing to our channel to stay up to date with all of our content. Until next time, I am Brian Parsons, your humbled host, wishing you all the best. Stay safe and God bless.